Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Here is Harnessing Your Wealth, and we have a great guest today. I think you guys are going to find this very fascinating, the story that we're going to discuss. We have Shaun, we have Cade, and we have Cody Jensen. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Cody before I let him say too much. But just so you all know, those of you who haven't been involved in horse racing or participated a lot and know too much about it, Cody was a 3-time AQHA champion jockey, American Quarter Horse Association. It's quite a feat to become the champion jockey in the country, but he did it 3 times, not just once. He also won the All-American twice, not once, but twice, back-to-back years.
Nice.
He won the All-American Derby twice. He also won the Champion of Champions. I was fortunate to win the Futurity and the Derby, but I never won the Champion of Champions. Cody had some impressive stats. He had, and this is just quarter horses, by the way. He rode 9,936 horses in his career. He had 1,663 wins. He amassed close to $42 million in total purse earnings. His career started right here in Utah in 1993, and it ended in 2019. So, he had a 4-year career. His highest earning year was in 2009, where he amassed close to $3.6 million in purses. He rode many, many Grade 1 winners, and 5 horses that he rode actually earned more than $1 million. He rode several others that catapulted that feat as well, but he maybe was only there for 1 or 2 mounts. He's been on some of the best horses in the country. I've known him for a long time. He grew up here in Utah and kind of, he in a way followed me in some of the path that I took when I left Utah and went to Sunland Park. Cody left Utah and went to Los Alamitos. So I want to introduce and say thank you, Cody, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Some of that stuff I didn't even know you were putting out there.
Leave it to us. We'll get the stats for you, all right? Just call us when you need any more
It's
information.
all on the internet, Cody,
Right.
nowadays.
I don't like to look at that stuff.
Yeah. It gets old. It makes you feel old.
Yeah, unfortunately it does.
Do you have a trophy case at home like Billy?
Oh, believe me, he does.
I do.
Nice.
He's got drawers and drawers. I've seen G.R. Carter's drawer of buckles.
It's insane.
Yeah.
His drawer's insane. Drawers. But, when you do most of your riding in Oklahoma and Texas and stuff where they give you a buckle for everything. In California and Ruidoso. Yeah, in California, the only buckle they would give you was if you were leading rider. And then they finally, here maybe 6-7 years ago, they finally started giving a buckle for the $2 million. And then a couple years later, they started giving a buckle for the champions. But it was just amazing. And when I was in Ruidoso, like you were, the only buckle you ever got was either leading rider or the All-American Futurity. There was no All-American Derby buckle. There was no Rainbow buckle. There was none of that. So when you got something from California or New Mexico, you earned it.
You felt like you earned it. No, those are things that people, as a jockey, you always you feel pretty special to have. I mean, these guys laugh at me because I have some trophies still from my days at El Paso, riding at Sunland Park. But they're like, oh my God, you got a little recreation T-ball trophies hanging up in there. But I mean, it's like Cody said, it's hard to get them.
We're not laughing at you. We just feel left out.
Laughing with me.
Yeah, we don't have as many trophies as you guys, but
No.
I'm working on a few.
Shaun, I'm not sure, but if you guys know, I've told you this before, but home run derby champion 3 years in a row. At age 8, 9, 10. Of course, this is
10, 11, 12.
him
But who's
telling us.
counting?
No one can verify it. No one's ever verified, but
The trophy verifies it, right?
Trophies there. Wakeboard,
I haven't seen the
wakeboard champion,
Yeah.
snowboard champion. So
Yeah, exactly.
he's
too
a
big to
legend
get
in
on
his
a
own
horse.
mind.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna kick this off. So back to the business at hand. Cody, you're gonna go back in time. Tell us a little bit about how you got started. I know your dad Leon was a jockey, but I think I've heard you tell a story. You didn't really want to be a jockey, right?
No, I really didn't. So with my dad being a rider, I grew up around it. And even though he worked a full-time job and was, rode a lot of the Idaho fairs and a little bit of Boise and Evanston and stuff like that around here, it just was a hard lifestyle. It really was. A lot of accidents on the track. A lot of emotional roller coasters. You know, you put a lot of work into a horse. They pull you off. They put somebody else on it. He is able to do the good. It was just a pretty emotional roller coaster. I didn't know if I wanted to be involved in that situation, you know. And I just, back in the 80s and 90s when my dad was riding, there wasn't a lot of money to be made around here. It's starting to get better and better around here. But I was like, why do I want to put my body and my emotional state through that kind of roller coaster just to not make a lot of money doing it? But yeah, then I got on my first racehorse and I was like, all right,
You're hooked.
this
Like
is
that.
what I'm doing.
And like me, you probably started just as a young kid. I think you said you were 17 before you really kind of got serious about it, exercising horses and working horses. And back in those days, for me anyway, it was, hey, $4 for a gallop, $5 if you're working them. And it seemed like tiny amount of money in today's dollars, but back then it was pretty damn good money. For me at that age, I was doing it at 14. It started to make some good money for the summers and stuff. Of course, winter's pretty violent around here, so you can't keep riding all year round. But you started to earning some money and then get on your first racehorse and then expand from there, start getting on bigger barns. And where I said you kind of followed my path, I meant I had the big break with riding for Lee Giles here locally in the Intermountain area, big name in the circuit. He was a trainer, had a lot of good owners, a lot of good horses. And when I left and went to Sunland, it was Mike Nelson that joined his barn then, and then you came after Mike, right? Did I have that right?
I think I started riding for Lee in '98, but I had hooked on with Ed Giles' boy Troy and worked and rode a year for Troy, which they moved me over, which got me moved over, and I started working for Cody Jensen, who had the barn right down there at the end of the road from Lee's, and was helping break pinhook thoroughbreds with Brocklebank and all those guys, you know, and whatnot over at Dwayne's barn. It was kind of the overflow, and we had maybe 4 quarter horses, and I was just left there at like 19, 20, just you know, I didn't know how to be a trainer. I just knew how to ride them, you know, barely. But we had some success with 1 2-year-old. She ran third in the Silver Dollar Fraternity and stuff like that I kind of started over there at Dwayne's barn. And then as we moved to Evanston, it went to Lee's barn. So I got to ride a couple of these horses that I had over at Dwayne's barn for Lee. And then when Mike, I can't remember if he retired then or he just moved on. Lee asked, you know, he had enough experience with me. He's like, hey, would you want to come over and take the barn ride here? I was like, heck yeah, you know, it was huge to get on that type of numbers, and they were quality colts too, because I'd never had anything like that offered to me before that.
Made a big difference for me, and I'm sure it kind of springboarded you into that next stage. Then you kind of went in. By then you were married, right? When did you get married to Amy?
97.
97, so it was right in there. Mm-hmm. And then I remember, you know, you guys were pretty heavily involved. Amy was involved in Utah Quarter Association. She worked with me when we were running that. She was secretary, did a heck of a job. You guys decided you wanted to move to California. What happened there?
Well,
Bump their heads, moved to California.
Fell off one too many times.
At that point in time, though, Los Alamitos was the ultimate goal in quarter horse racing. Well, the All-American Ruidoso was the ultimate goal, but year-round racing, better weather, 4 nights a week down there when I moved down there. And it was kind of the bar. If you could make it there, you could make it anywhere, you know. And all of us growing up in the Intermountain area, with Blaine Schwanenveld being from the Intermountain area right here in Preston, and doing so well down there. And you had gone, Dusty Stimson had gone, you know, these guys that I grew up watching you guys get started a couple years before I did, starting to have success down there in California. I was like, I need to give it a shot. But the couple years leading up to that, we would run the Blaine Schwanenveld Fraternity in Wyoming Downs. And every year Blaine would come up from California and he would stay with Lee Giles when we were up there. And he'd stay up there for 4 or 5 days. And he'd come to the barns in the morning and stuff like that. And he got to know him, but he started asking me, he's like, Cody, why don't you come down to California and ride for me? And I kept telling him, for a couple of years, I kept telling him, no, Blaine, I've worked real hard to get where I'm at, and I'm very, very loyal. That was a slight problem with me over the years that I rode, but I was very, very loyal to Lee because he treated me so well, and he was almost like another father figure to me. And Lee was such an important part of my life, and I felt like I owed him. I couldn't take off and go to California. So after a couple of years of Blaine telling me I need to come down and go to work for him, I finally had one really nice 2-year-old that I knew was going to California for the Million Trials that we'd had up in there in Wyoming. And I talked to Amy and I says, let's go down and give it at least till February. We'll go down October, we'll ride him in the trials, and we'll give it at least till February. And we didn't think it would work, but I wanted to go try. And then we'd kind of made plans, just come back up and kind of start back up where we were before. But that 2-year-old ended up being Catch Me in Your Dreams, and he makes over $1 million. He's a 5-time champion. It just launches my career to the stratosphere. So it's just funny how timing works out sometimes and timing doesn't, but it just worked out so good with that gray horse going down there. So
You never know when things are going to fall in, but hard work, I've always said this, and you believe in powers of the universe, and things come together for you. And they come together in the strangest way. Because you look at that horse, no one ever thought he would be what he was.
No,
He wasn't anything to look at.
What was his name?
Catch Me in Your Dreams.
Catch Me in Your Dreams.
Yep. Kurt Goodfellow had bought his mother out of the Los Al sale in full with that colt. And he had took him down as a yearling and put him through the Vessel Swanevelt sale. And he only brought like a $9,000 live bid. And he brought him home. And we had just got back from like Elko over Labor Day weekend or something like not too long after that. And he brought that colt over and he dropped him off at Lee's barn in one of the Mare Motel stalls. And me and Lee and Martine, everybody wandered out to look at him. And we were like, he should have sold him. That was the most raw-boned, ugly spot. He was gray with spots all over him. And he was still a horse colt. And he was so lazy and none of us liked him. And oh God! And then look what he turned out to be. So you never know when something's going to enter your life that you have no idea is going to change the entire trajectory of how your life and your career and everything's going to go. If I'd have known what that horse was going to do for me that day I walked out and first laid eyes on him, I don't know. Looking at him, I don't know if that's the way. I would be like, I don't know if I want my life to go this direction. This horse.
Yeah, he wasn't the prettiest horse. I watched a couple of videos of you racing before you came in here, gray colt. But before you got to that point, what do you think is the best horse you rode here in the Intermountain area?
When we were running him here, he wasn't the best horse I rode. Mm-hmm. Now, in the long run, he ended up being the best horse that I rode here. But I don't know. There was a couple when I was riding for Lee. He had a couple of horses. He had one that he owned half of named BR Fantasy. She ended up winning the Silver Dollar. But that same year, I had one for Dwayne, Dusty's Proudest, who won the Utah Classic on him. And then right the last year I rode there, he had a Dash to Fame out of that same mare called Dusty's Fame that won the Diamond Classic. Those 3 horses right there are splitting hairs. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were just great 2-year-olds, and they taught me how to win big races. Yeah, I think that's an important part as you're coming up as a young rider. You have to learn how to win, but then you have to learn how to win the big ones. Right. And I think that's a very underestimated part of the learning process, because when you first get into a big race, like back then, $100,000 race for us around here was huge.
You're just happy to be in it.
Yeah.
Not really thinking about winning it.
Yep. And then you have to learn how to actually win those type of races. And then to be able to be on those type of 2-year-olds that were not only able to qualify, but actually give you a chance to win those races was huge. But then we had All-American Jewel for Harvey and Brenda Pickens. He won the Bitterroot and the Silver Dollar. And they ended up taking him and paying him late into the All-American Futurity. So, that's about the only horse when I was riding around here that actually took off and went to the All-American trials. Mm-hmm.
Well, Catch Me in Your Dream, he learned how to run as he got older. He just progressed and got better and more. He just didn't make mistakes, that horse. I mean, I watched you win a lot of races on him, and it was impressive. He powered his way through there. He wasn't the prettiest horse to watch run, but boy, he could run.
Yeah, and not very big either. He was very long, but he was almost always the smallest stature horse in the race. But he was a great quarter-mile horse. And like I said, although all those big grade ones and stuff that he won, he was hardly ever the fastest horse in the race. He just was the most mistake-free as he got 4 and up, you know. And those good horses like Be a Bono or Who's Leaving Who would stub their toe. Boy, he'd just grind you down and beat you. And over his career, he beat some of the best horses out there. Like I say, Be a Bono, Who's Leaving Who. He beat A.B. Water Runner twice. I mean, he was the most consistent gelding in California for probably a 3, maybe 4 year span down there.
Wow. He did a lot for your career, Chris O'Dell's career, but kind of a sidebar there. But going back to getting yourself started, you know, you proved yourself around here, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho circuit. You know, people knew you when you decided to pack up and go permanently. When you got there, of course, you knew Blaine. And I remember talking to you when you got down there and said, hey, I love Blaine, and he's the name out here. But he's also got Ramon Figueroa, you know, and Ramon is his son-in-law, and I think Ramon's going to ride most all of the horses that end up being really good. And Paul Jones was just kind of getting going at that point. When I retired, Paul was up and he wasn't even close to what he ended up being. And you got there for the glory days, and then you got in with Paul good, and that made a hell of a difference for your career. I know that. But talk about the jockey colony, because when I got there, you know, my route wasn't direct like yours. My route was, all right, I'm going to Sunland Park. I'm going to school at UTEP. I'm going to ride there, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas a little bit. And then I said, I'm going to go to California because Jerry Nicodemus told me to go to ride thoroughbreds. He said, you need to get out of the quarter horse deal. You know, money's in the thoroughbred business. He had introduced me to Richard Mandela, you know, at a branding at R.D. Hubbard's ranch. And Dick Mandela said, hey, come out. You're a hard-working son of a buck. I want kids like you to know how to, you know, handle horses. And I got out there, and I was terrified of my weight because the weight scales are a lot lower for the thoroughbred riders. And, you know, my natural weight, I'm 150 pounds now. But back then, I wanted to be able to ride with all those guys. So I was tacking 116 at Sunland, and then I got to where I think, I have to tack 112 here at at Santa Anita and stuff, which brought my strip weight down to like 108. I was so skinny and sick I couldn't even function. And I think I'm going to go out there and ride, but I was so terrified of my weight that I missed all sorts of opportunities that he had given me. Matter of fact, he gave me a great horse when I first got there to ride, an allowance filly. And I turned down the mount because I hadn't been on the scale yet. And this is how dumb I was and how silly my thinking was back in those days. So my career kind of sputtered to a halt on the thoroughbred circuit. But I went to ride quarter horses, and where I'm going with this, back to you, is when I got to the jocks room at Los Alamitos, and you're talking some of the best riders of all time. You've got Kip Diedrichson, you've got Joe Badia, you've got Jim Lewis, you've got Bruce Pilkington in there, still got Kenny Hart still riding, Eddie Garcia, Henry Garcia. The list goes on and on.
Oh yeah, when you got to Los Alamitos, the rider colony was still super strong, even though a lot of those guys were pretty close to retiring. Because when I got there a few years after you, like Bruce was already gone, Jim was already gone. These guys are already gone, but I still got Kreger, I still got John, and I still got Eddie Garcia, and I've got so many of these, you know, good riders. But then I hit some of the most tremendous up and coming riders. You know, when I got there, Ramon Sanchez, Rodrigo Acevas, these guys that ended up being, you know, I had to butt heads with and compete with for the next 15 years down there, that were rewriting records down there with less days to ride. You know, they were winning at higher clips and winning more stakes races, and you know, Ramon Sanchez just took the game to a whole different level down there in California. And when I went to work for Paul, Ramon was Paul's, you know, kind of his first call rider. And so for the next 6, 7, 8 years, we had to compete directly for, Paul's good 2-year-olds, and we hated it. We
Hated each other.
We hated to have to compete against each other. But looking back, I think it benefited both of us so much. We never got complacent. We were always so competitive against each other. I think Paul reaped the biggest benefits because he got, 2 riders in their prime that were riding that hard against each other. And he's like, I get all the benefit. These guys are riding out of their minds, because they're competing against each other. But I think if either of us hadn't had the other one and we had that whole barn to ourselves, I don't think neither of us would have worked near as hard.
Might have gotten a little lazy.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you had job security, you get a little lazy. But between the two of us, we never had job security against each other, and we're very good friends now. And we respect each other a lot, but while we were directly competing, it sucks so bad.
I like how you said we're good friends now.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
It sounds like beat the shit out of each other
That was me and Todd Fincher
It was?
back in the day when I was riding against him. We
Todd
hated
was
each other.
Todd was mean?
No,
Todd
we
was
hated each
not-
other because we competed for the same barns, Fred Danley
Yeah.
and Doyle Roberts, and we wanted to ride the same horses all the time. And so you'd root against the guy. You don't want him
sure.
to win. And yet, you're always right there butting heads. And now we're really good friends,
Oh yeah.
But it's just funny how things go and transpire.
What do you guys think? Maybe I'm interviewing you now, Bill. What do you think makes a difference between like the average jock and then someone that separates themselves like you two did?
Jeez. I'll answer it and then I'll be real quick because I want to hear Cody. But for me, it was just staying determined and never quitting. I mean, I had so many chances or situations that would call for a lot of people who would just say, forget this. This is not worth it. The accidents, the spills, the down moments, getting horses taken away from you, losing mounts, going for long stretches of time without winning anything. And just to keep getting up every day, getting out to that barn before the sun comes up and going around and knocking doors. And it's equivalent to the knocking doors, which you're familiar with,
Yeah.
but never taking no, never accepting that defeat. And I just think finally when you realize that people are going to give you a chance if you're worth it, if you've earned it, and then things start coming together.
Yeah, I think everything you said is 100% right, and your work ethic gives you everything. Like when I got to California, nobody really knew who I was, but there was a few people that took notice of how hard I worked, which provided me opportunities. The same thing like when I went to work for Paul. I think that was the biggest. He got to see me ride a few races, and he's like, okay, this kid, he might be okay. We get him learning a little bit more, but I think he liked my work ethic. And then when I went to Remington and stuff like that, where nobody really cared what I'd done in California, nobody really cared what I'd done in Ruidoso. I mean, this is Oklahoma. This is our place, and you had to really work your way into and get into that group of Oklahomans. And but your work ethic provides you the opportunity. So your work ethic's going to give you a chance to ride big horses in big money races. What really separates it, we call them the money riders. And I don't know if hard work can get you there. You either it's kind of like in any other sport. Everybody thinks they want the ball in the fourth quarter
Last
with 2 minutes
shot.
left,
Yep.
last shot. Very few actually do.
Yeah.
And you look back when Billy was riding, when I was riding, about the top 5% of quarter horse riders made all the money because they were the money riders. And it didn't really matter if they're riding a 6-1 shot or 8-5 in the All-American Futurity. They're gonna go get a piece of that money because the moment isn't too big for them for whatever reason that is. I don't know.
Some people
And-
are built different, like I keep telling you guys about me.
And your work ethic and your ability is going to get you those shots. But after 4 or 5 shots, if you can't seal the deal,
Close, yeah.
pretty soon those shots start drying up, and then all of a sudden you're just a room rider, a day race rider. You're not getting those opportunities to ride those good 2-year-olds or those big stakes horses anymore. You have to be able to take advantage of the opportunities when they come, because they're going to quit coming if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You guys ever get to the point in your career, at the height of your career, where you were turning down lower end races, or you just take on any?
Cody turned a lot more down than I did because he was way more known than I. He rode for some of the big dogs.
Yeah, there towards the end of my career, I would be. I had some good agents that would protect me pretty good, and I was riding for R.D. Hubbard, and he would always get after me. He's like, "Hey, Cody, quit riding them claimers. We got more important stuff to do than riding them claimers." He's like, "Quit riding them cheap horses. We got colts and trials and stuff like that." He would always be getting after me about, But I really, even towards the end of my career, I wanted to help everybody out. I had a hard time saying no. And sometimes I could just leave it to my agents to be like, no.
I mean, I had a good agent too. I had two good agents, Ray Ann Holland and Monty Olemacher. And I know you also hired Monty. Monty was great. But Ray Ann for me she stood out because I had that kind of thing happening to me when I was at Sunland Park. I was a leading rider by a lot. And this isn't me bragging, but this was her. This was how good she was at her job, getting me the mounts. And so if you'd enter for a 12-horse card on a day, an entry day, we might have 4 of those races where I had multiple calls, multiple horses that trainers wanted me to ride. And I didn't have to do anything. She would make smooth things over with everybody. If I couldn't ride a guy's horse, she would make it to where there was no resentment. And I would potentially be able to get that horse again and next time they entered. Of course, that's so tricky to have that kind of personality to be able to get
where it's not like, go to hell, I'm not riding your horse, then they're never going to give you another chance if something come up.
You burn bridges in this business,
you can't burn
boy,
bridges.
You're in trouble.
No.
Makes sense.
And it's really tough because there's a lot of owners and trainers. When you get to the point where you have multiple horses going into the same stakes races or something like that, which is what you want. You just don't want one good stakes horse, or one good 3-year-old and one good older horse or one good 2-year-old. But there's a lot of trainers that take that very personally when you decide that you're going to ride Joe's horse over Dave's horse, and they take that really personal. But on the flip side, they can't believe we take it personal if
they don't give you a mount.
We have a good horse that we've been riding for them, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to give it to Billy, or we're going to give it to GR Carter to ride, or something like that." Then they're like, "Why are you mad?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword, But we have it happen to us way more, where we have to decide on 1, 2, 3, 4 horses that are entered in the same race, and you have to make a call. And that's, like Billy said, that's where your agent comes in. It's so important. He'll keep those things straightened out, and coming into it that what you're going to have, he's able to smooth those type of things out and make sure nobody's feelings are hurt or anything like that. But it's a tough business. But like me though, like my agent, I didn't matter if it was Monty or if it was who it was. I always told him, when we get a switch, we got to decide on a horse, always call me and I will make the decision. Because then if it blows up, it doesn't blow up. I've made the decision. And if I pick the wrong horse, I picked the wrong horse.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling in the world.
If I just leave you making those decisions for me, and it ends up being the wrong horse, now I start resenting you too.
Yeah.
So I made it a little bit easier on them instead of having to make those decisions. I had it down already. I was like, I'm gonna make the decision because then everything falls on me.
Then they smooth it over for you.
Yeah,
well, that's cool.
Slightly change the subject, but I've always been curious, and we mentioned this a little bit before we started. How do you develop that connection with the horse, and how rare was it? Where do you have to be there from their first work out of the gate and just ride them for their whole career, or how do you develop that personal relationship with the horse?
Oh, That is a tough question. I think just your natural horsemanship or how you interact with any animal plays a huge part into it. I think a lot of experience plays another big part into it. And I always liked knowing my horse. I loved developing a young 2-year-old and making him a good horse and being along with him every step of the way. But some of the best riders in the world can adapt to any horse. If they've never seen it, the first time they ever see it's when they walk out in the paddock and that trainer legs them up on to go ride them. Those guys are the ones you envy because they have such an adaptable set of skills and they have the right mindset and such an easygoing type personality that they can. A lot of horses get along with them, and they get along with most any type of horse. And they can adapt their riding style fairly easy to whatever is being presented to them going down there at 48, 50 miles an hour, and they can adapt that quick. You know, that's what makes some of those guys so special.
Yeah, a lot of it is sensing the horse while you get on. Sometimes you haven't been on them before ever, and so that's really learning on the fly. But what do they like? Do they like to be held tight? I mean, a lot of these riders today, they don't know how to hold a horse together and help a horse get out of the gate, get their feet under them, get running. They want to just throw the reins thinking that's helping them. And it's, you know, I don't know. It's a different world. I see some really, really bad riders. There's some good ones, but I see some really bad ones out there today, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I don't know if they get the mentorship from the
Maybe
riders
they're not
like
learning.
we did, you know.
Probably.
We were very fortunate even when we started here in Utah and Wyoming. We had such a good colony of riders that rode from Boise to Wyoming Downs and even on the Idaho fairs and stuff like that. But there was a lot of really good mentorship. And over the last basically 7-8 years that I rode, and that a lot of the good riders that I got mentorship with or I grew up right, we just started retiring them left and right, you know. So the quality of the room as the veterans in the room went down drastically in a very short period of time, and left, I think, a lot of these young riders with nobody to really mentor them along and not only teach them how to ride and what to do on and off the racetrack, but those guys helped teach me what to do off the racetrack too.
Right.
How to behave,
No,
what's
good point.
expected of you, you know. So I think that some of these young guys are just lacking in quality mentorship in the room.
I guess that's a very good point. You know, you learn a lot from those around you and people that want to take some time, vested interest. You know, I think we can all look back, connect the dots to some people that made a big difference in our career. But, you know, I like to share a lot of stories, and these guys know me. I'm always talking about how tough it was back in the day. Like, these guys have it so easy these days. Easy.
It's coasting along over here.
Back in my day, here we go.
Uphill, both ways.
You guys are spoiled.
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 I like talking racetrack stories and things that, you know, occurred. And Cody's got some good ones, but I'll kick off a real quick one. So I'm going to win a lot of cash in Oklahoma at Remington Park Derby. It's the Remington Park Derby. And I was at Los Alamitos at the time, so that was where I was stationed, living and riding there. And Blaine Schwanebelt had a horse in the Derby as well for Abigail Quananakoa. She was the Hawaiian princess, worth billions of dollars. She recently passed away. Mm-hmm. But back then, I mean, she was quite a colorful figure in the horse racing industry. Everyone knew her. She's a very, very wealthy lady. Had a plane. And like I said, Blaine had this horse. He was training for her. And so she was going to fly him to go over there to run that horse. And he said, why don't you just jump in with us and you fly with us. We'll go over there and run the Derby, come back. Great. You know, I was awesome. So I fly with him over there, and great situation. We kind of go and do our thing. And of course, I won the Derby. And
it was winning a lot of cash.
Yeah, it was his year. And so Blaine and Abigail, I think they ran fourth or something. Bruce Pilkington rode. He was already over there, so he didn't need to fly. But so at dinner that night, of course, they want to go to have dinner, and I'm not eating anything, and they're all having a hell of a time drinking and
Ribeye, steaks, mashed potatoes.
I mean, all that stuff. But of course, I just kind of watch and, you know, might eat a lettuce wrap or a carrot stick. But I ordered a glass of milk. You know, I don't know. I always like milk. And she comes over and dumps half a glass of vodka in it and then sits there until I drink it all. On the way back, go to the plane that night, it's dark. And I'm no longer allowed to sit in one of the main seats. She's got somebody else coming back with us. I'm put in to the back, kind of like a jump seat right in front of the toilet. You know, this like
I've had a ride on the toilet a few times.
And I think I was being punished for actually winning that derby. And
One of the attendant seats is what you
I
had to sit in.
froze to death.
Oh,
I
I'm
didn't have
sure.
any clothes. It was so cold back there. Of course, they're all having a hell of a good time coming back, but I was being punished for that trip.
Oh yeah, and Abigail is one of my favorite people in the world, but it was very, very hard to break her exterior, to break in and get in the inner circle of Abigail, and she ended up, and she still scared the crap out of me, you know, till the day I retired. I mean, nobody scared me more than Abigail, because when she wanted to get after you about something, boy, it was,
Brutal.
But like, she got to the point where, especially the last few years that she was alive, I mean, there was two people I called on Mother's Day, and that was Abigail and my own mother. So, my stepmom. So three, you know, on Mother's Day. But she meant that much to me. She was a very intimidating lady for somebody who's only 5'4" or whatever she was, very small in stature, but she was a very intimidating lady. So you never really wanted to cross her, but she gave me a lot of opportunities. I won a lot of big races for her, and we became very, very close. And it was tough. It was tough when we lost Abigail for me.
Vodka and milk. You need Kahlua
I
to
mean,
make that a white
that's
Russian,
not even
right?
a white Russian.
Yeah.
Vodka goes with everything. I don't know.
I can't even
I
imagine.
wasn't a big drinker back in those days, but you know, hey,
Nothing about vodka and milk sounds appealing.
No, you'd
Right
have to
there,
have
but,
Kahlua and
hey,
ice, or else.
But when Abigail's giving you the steely stare, you drink that.
you got to do it.
There's no doubt
was
about
scared.
it. You
I
drink
was
it.
Well, you weren't going to get home.
No, I got
if you didn't
do
drink
this, or you're not getting on the plane. And then
Weighing
when you
a
get on the plane, you're
$110, you probably got pretty drunk on that, huh? Right?
yeah. Well, I can't remember anything.
it.
After
Were you
that.
riding in the plane, or were you passed out?
I
on the
was
plane,
cold.
Billy?
I just remember it being cold.
Plot twist, he was in the plane, he just forgot.
Cody, you got any good stories?
Well, it's very funny because like Billy was telling that story, and as a rider, and in any part of life that you do, but especially as riders, a lot of the time when you get to the point where you're traveling a lot, you get to the point where people are calling you in to ride horses, and you're getting on a lot of planes, a lot of chartered planes. You know, you're making changes all the time. It's a very hectic world, but it's also a very, very lonely world. You know, that's why I have so much respect for these guys that hit the rodeo trail and have to travel so much to do their work, because, you know, when you're on that racetrack or you're at the racetrack, everybody loves you. You know, they want you to sign an autograph or want your goggles, and you know, same thing in the rodeo arena when they're under those lights. But when they walk out of that arena, they've got a couple thousand miles sometimes to travel to the next rodeo, and we've got to catch a red-eye flight or something like that. And you put your street clothes on, you walk out there, nobody knows who you are, and nobody cares, and you have nobody that you know around you. And like, I'd be gone sometimes for 2-3 days on the road, and I have nobody, and nobody cares. When I walk out of that racetrack, nobody cares. And there's a lot of fame and glory while you're doing your thing, but man, when you pull out of that racetrack, nobody cares. It's a very eventful life, but it's also a very, very lonely life when you're on the road that much. That's why I loved being at Los Alamitos for the years that I was, because I got to stay someplace. You know, I got to be year round.
Yeah.
I didn't have to pick up and move. Like, once I started going to Remington and Ruidoso for the summers. Now, granted, it was great for my career, but that was a lot of work, especially with my wife working and teaching. I was gone 3+ months without her every year, and it was tough. It was a tough lifestyle, but it was definitely the right decision in the long run.
Right on.
Yeah. There's a lot going on behind the scenes at the racetrack, you know, and everybody picks up and moves, kind of like the circus traveling around. But it's been an interesting career.
There's no doubt about it. Us racetrackers, we are a circus.
No, I'm very proud of you, Cody. You had a hell of a career. I know it's tough transitioning into the retired status and figuring out what to do every day, but you're still, you know, you're fishing. So,
yeah, being retired is a little tough on me. I enjoy having my time off, especially with my wife being a teacher. She gets her summers off. We do a lot of these things that we never got to do in those 25 years while I was riding. So it's really nice, but winters are a little tough on me. Of course, my body's pretty tore up from all the miles and the wrecks and stuff like that. So I can't do the snow skiing. I can't do the winter sports that are so fun to do back here in Utah. So winters are a little rough on me. I don't have a whole lot to do. You know, I've learned to do a lot of cool stuff watching YouTube videos. So, you know, I could be a YouTube mechanic or, you know, something like that.
Podcaster.
Yeah,
There
you know,
are.
but yeah, being retired's definitely been an adjustment. I miss the boys. That's the toughest part. And I know, like, probably when you retired too, that's like, I don't walk in the jocks room and see the boys today.
yeah.
You know?
I walked into the jocks room like 9 months after I retired, you know, and they sent me on to the training program at Payne Weber where you're going to be a financial advisor and they teach you how to do this stuff. And the one thing that financial advisors do really well is eat. And I was coming from 110, 112 pounds and throwing with these guys. And of course, I'd never been eating, like, just keep my weight down. And it's like, shit, I'm going to get even with this. So I will nonstop eat. And I came back and I'd put on 20 pounds in no time.
Yeah, that's not the way to do it.
No, it was bad. I looked like a doughboy. My face was all puffed out. So I went back to Ruidoso that next summer just to see the guys, like you were mentioning. I walk in there. And the first guy that spots me is Jockey Martin. And he goes, Jesus Christ, you fat bastard. What happened to you? First thing out of his mouth. I was mortified after that. I was like, really? Am I looking that fat? So
Then you started running.
I started running. That was very serious running. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And when you gain 20 pounds over 2 years, you can look pretty good with that extra 20 pounds on, especially as riders.
Yeah.
You gain it in 9
Couple
months. No, you look like you're gonna pop. You know,
Yeah,
it's not a healthy gain. You know,
was not good.
That's like GR when he retired the first time, and then come back and rode the All-American a year and a half later or whatever it was. He was like, Cody, I put on the weight too fast. He's like, when he retired again, he's like, I am not going to do that. That is for sure. But I've seen like Casey Lambert. He looked pretty good at 113. He looks really good at 150.
Yeah.
You know, like you didn't look too good at 113.
no.
You look really good at 150.
Easy.
You know?
Easy. Don't blow his ego
Yeah.
out.
No, I mean some riders, some retired riders carry 150 really good, and some you're like, ooh, maybe you need to go running too, buddy.
Yeah.
You know,
Go lift a weight.
it's
Air squats.
Interesting group of people.
oh yeah, that's type crazy stories. When I first started going out of town, I went to Phoenix to ride like challenge finals or something in the fall there in Phoenix. I was based out of Los Alamitos, but I hadn't been one of those riders that was traveling a lot, you know. And J.R. Carter was there, and of course he's J.R. Carter. And I went down there to ride for Ralph Fales, and he was had picked me up from the airport and was giving me a ride back to the airport. So we get done riding, and JR's like, "Hey, Cody, who's taking you back to the airport?" I said, "Ralph is." He's like, "Do you think I can catch a ride with you guys?" I'm like, "Sure." So we're hanging out just outside the jocks room there in Phoenix, and we're sitting on the tailgate of a truck, and he says, "Cody, let me borrow your phone. My phone's dead. I need to call my wife." I'm like, "Cool." So I hand him my phone. He dials up. He's talking to Shane on the phone, and we're sitting right next to each other. I'm trying not to listen to this conversation. I don't really care what's going on, but I hear him say, "I don't know." He looks at me and says, "Cody, where are we?" I'm like, "Dude, we're in Phoenix." He's like, "Oh, yeah." Yeah, so he's like, babe, we're in Phoenix. And I think he was going to probably Lone Star or something from there. And I looked at him, I'm like, are you crazy? You don't know what town you're in?
Whirlwind.
Fast forward about 8 years, I really felt it because there was a lot of times I was like, now where am I going from here? Where am I and where am I going from here? Because you would get just so crazy on your traveling. I remember one week we went, I rode Thursday night at Los Alamitos, caught a red-eye flight, flew from LAX to Dallas to Midland. No, I went from Dallas to Tulsa, and I rode Friday afternoon in Claremore at Will Rogers. And then we had a chartered flight. There was like 3 or 4 of us riders had a charter flight, and we flew down to Lone Star and rode Lone Star Friday night. And then as soon as Lone Star was over, so it was probably about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, we got up back on that plane, flew back to Claremore, and we rode Saturday morning in Claremore, or Saturday afternoon in Claremore. We got on another charter plane and flew to Des Moines and rode Challenge Championship finals at Prairie Meadows. And then 3 of us got in a car at midnight in Des Moines and drove 6 hours back to Tulsa. I got like 2 hours of sleep in the hotel room. I rode Sunday afternoon at Claremore, bombed to Tulsa, jumped on a flight, flew back to California, and rode Sunday night in Los Al.
Yeah, that will make you crazy.
Good Lord.
That was just in a 4-day span. We were at that many tracks, doing that much traveling.
The next time we're at a track and we're placing bets, I want to know that information. Where's this jockey been hopping around to?
Not only his weight. His weight's not important.
I don't care about the weight.
How
Has
much
he
sleep?
slept?
Yeah, how much sleep have you
Is he
had?
thinking clear?
You on amphetamines or what are you doing to keep yourself?
It would get so crazy.
Oh, that sounds
in all
insane.
honesty, especially once like Labor Day weekend rolled around. Once the All-American was over, it just turned into travel city.
Dang.
You know, for God, like 9-10 years for me, it was just nonstop travel. My dad used to poke fun at me. He's like, you spend more money chasing money than most people make. You know,
One way to look at it.
That's the way to look at it.
I would
guess,
have
but-
sometimes 60 legs, 70 legs a year
Wow.
traveling.
Did they have Delta miles back then, guys?
No, he's ancient. He's way before
Well,
Delta Mile.
and you just had to fly whatever airline would go to whatever
That's true.
oddball destination.
Yeah, you weren't.
and at what time you needed to be there. So,
Yeah,
Dang.
puddle jumper, whatever.
oh yeah, chartered a million planes. We used to fly with his name was Woody, and he had like a little Cessna plane. So it was like a 4-seater. So pilot, co-pilot, 2 jump seats behind. And I remember one night we were flying from, I think, Claremore down to Dallas to ride like Tex Classic Finals or something like that. And Woody was pilot seat. I was in the co-pilot. GR was wedged kind of between us, and then we had 4 other riders in those 2 seats.
Sounds
across the
legal.
back.
Yeah.
Oh no, definitely not. Definitely not.
Fun
But
times.
you got to do what you got to do what you got to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
You know. But sometimes, a lot of times it was just me and GR, or sometimes it was just me. And but when you could share those charter flights with, 2 to 4 guys, it just kind of helped out. Everybody's percentage went down, and give you a little chance to make more money because
Sure.
you spend $900 on a flight that's you're part of it, down, and your horse runs dead last. You make a $120 check.
Net loss money.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. So
Crazy. Well, I hope everyone's enjoyed this conversation as much as we have, and just give you a little bit of a peek into the life and times of a jockey and all that jockeys go through. It's a much different life than most professional athletes that have everything taken care of. They have a travel agent running the show for them. They have insurance. If they get hurt, they're not out. If jockey gets hurt, they're not making any money. And watch some other guy ride the horse that they'd spent so much time preparing for all these races. It's a brutal lifestyle, but one I think we'd all agree is the most exciting thing one can ever do, busting out of the gate on a quarter horse or a thoroughbred. But it's been fun catching up with Cody. I want to thank him for being part of this today and harnessing your wealth and knowing what can be possible if you set your mind to it and then you take care of business, make money, and then you can retire like Cody did.
Yeah. No, the life was more than I could have ever asked for when I first started it. I thought if I could just make a living and not have to punch a time clock, I'd be a happy man. And then it took me all over this great country. I got to meet some wonderful people, and I was lucky enough to get on some of the best horses to come down the racetrack in a 15-year span right there through. So I was blessed way more than I ever thought possible doing this.
Amazing career. Thanks for being here again, and thanks for joining us today. Talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to Harnessing Your Wealth with Billy Peterson. Before we declare the race official, please click the follow button so you can be notified when new episodes become available. For more information about today's show, please check out the show notes. Visit our website at www.petersonws.com or give us a call at 801-475-4002. Once again, thank you for listening. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Peterson Wealth Services. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.